Well, in my work on security, a big part of the question is whose security might be in danger in the coming years. So this field of security studies inherently is about forecasting, making predictions about how actors might be vulnerable, what strategies might help them, and so forth. So I got interested in the Good Judgment Project because I wanted to build these skills. Well, I think there were a couple of factors. One was that I am in the middle of my career now, and I've spent a lot of time studying exactly the kind of issues that the Good Judgment Project was focusing on. And so I was familiar with trade issues, I was familiar with national security issues, the rise and fall of governments, that kind of thing. So it really was right in my issue area. Also, I use a theory that can be well applied in this kind of situation. It's called structural realist theory, and it gives a sense of big recurring outcomes in international relations, the rise and fall of great powers, the tendency for military conflict to occur, competition in trade, and so forth. And so I had a kind of broad understanding of international affairs that I could apply to particular situations. And the beauty of this theory was that it's really pretty open. States have a lot of choices about how they act. And so I wasn't falling into the trap of thinking that something was inevitable, but instead was investigating which things were more likely, which things were less likely. So this theory was really conducive to probabilistic forecasting, and my background knowledge was really helpful in having a big set of information to draw from, and also knowledge about where to find things, where to find information that would be helpful. Well, the first thing was to really explore my biases, to realize that I often would have a first impulse about a question, and I didn't want to just go with that. Sometimes it was right, but I didn't want to just go on impulse. And secondly, I really learned to think about what my strengths were, to focus on questions that I thought were in my area of strength, and in particular to focus on questions that I thought were being answered wrong, or where the general consensus was different from what I thought it was. So, because there I could make the most difference in shifting opinion or contributing knowledge that might sway the crowd and make the group as a whole more accurate. So I think those things were really important. Well, every year in the tournament, I kept a running list of what questions I'd answered, when I first answered them, how I first answered them, and it was really helpful to see how my opinion changed as new information came along. So I was, kind of keeping myself honest about what was my original opinion and what was making me change my mind. And I think that was really helpful because I learned a lot about what kind of pits I might fall into. If I get over-optimistic about suddenly there's a lot of news on a certain issue, I might have a tendency to think that something was more likely to happen, whereas maybe it wasn't really more likely to happen. So keeping track of my predictions was very helpful. I thought it was really important that I was forecasting anonymously at first. It made me more confident about making predictions without worrying about their effect on my reputation. And after all, I was in this to get better about forecasting. So I wanted to have the ability to make bets or answer questions in a way that I thought was correct without worrying about how that might be seen somewhere else. And that really built up my confidence, and actually through being right then, frequently, it built up my confidence to the point that I was willing to reveal who I was, and then got to experience the whole other dynamic of people knowing I was an expert, wondering what I thought about things, and then having to be cautious about not relying too much on my expert knowledge, but still thinking about the wisdom of the crowd. So I think the anonymity is really important, and also realizing that the magic of this whole study is in revealing that everybody has important information, and at different times, different people's information will be really valid and especially important, and finding that right balance between being confident in your own views and being open to the views of others. So, in my work, this experience has been extremely important. I am now working on an article about the rise of China that I would not have written if it had not been for my experience in the Good Judgment Project. By having to constantly update my knowledge about China's economic capabilities and its military capabilities in order to do well in this game, I kept up at a much finer grain level with things that were happening in China and that have changed my forecast about how international relations will work over the next couple of decades. So I'm an international relations scholar. One of the most important things in the international relations field right now is this question of does the United States have peer competitors? Is China one yet? And this experience helped me see that it is. So it's really dramatically changed my career. And the process of going through the confidence building process of learning how to articulate forecasts, learning how to how to express them in probabilistic terms, how to be confident even if I'm not completely sure, has made me willing to take the risk of going out on this really controversial subject.